Good evening. I'd like to bring the meeting to order. Today is February 10th, 2025, and it's 6:01 p.m. First on our agenda tonight is the presentation of the Franklin County Tech budget for the town of Northfield. And we have tonight
Richard Martin, the school superintendent director from Franklin County Tech.
and you have an assistant behind you.
Assistant to the business manager, this is Liz Bouchard.
Hi, how are you?
Liz, do you want to come up and join?
You can.
Yeah, please.
Well,
We're not gonna
And-
bite.
We'll
In
try.
observance is tonight.
General.
We have an attendance tonight.
Rich David, 5 Main Street.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you know some of the new members that we have here tonight. I've been here probably since you came to 20 some odd
18
years ago or so.
19, yeah.
Yeah, so we will introduce ourselves.
Bernie Parada?
I do.
Gail Weiss.
I'm Dan Campbell.
Lindsay McCarthy. Robin Vandermaat.
I do.
Now that we have that all set,
Okay.
you're on, sir.
Okay, I'll take about 15 minutes to go over the overview of the budget. And you all have received a budget book. I sent one to Dan as well electronically. And this is a draft budget book because we are in the first reading stages. So in our February meeting on this Wednesday, we'll give the school committee 1 month to deliberate over the budget, and then they vote on the final budget in March. So the numbers might fluctuate a little bit, you know, depending on what the impact is or depending on what the input is from our school committee. The budget book is very user-friendly. And the first thing I would like to say, we went with the picture of the building only because we are in the middle of the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority design phase. We went through the eligibility portion, we hired our OPM, we have hired our design firm. Now we're going through the design phase. And that will determine whether or not we are doing a renovation on the building, a renovation plus an addition, or a core brand new building. That's not determined at this particular point in time. It is expected to be determined by around this time next year. We'll have an idea of the pathway that we'll be going, and then we'll know what the price is and the estimated cost per town, depending on which avenue that ends up going down. So that's to come down the road. I know we've talked about it here for the last several years, but just wanted to update you where we are in the process.
Is any of that portion being paid for by the state of Massachusetts?
We haven't got the exact determination of the percent of the reimbursement, but when we did a windows and doors project through the MSBA 9 years ago, out of a 15-year bond, they paid 74%. That was 9 years ago. The formulas have changed a little bit. We're estimated anywhere between 60 to 66%. We don't know exactly where that's going to go. It could be higher. It won't go lower than that, but it would, you know. But I like to take a conservative approach. So until we actually get the numbers, we're not exactly going to know. But before someone goes out to vote, they're going to know what that number is.
And the anticipated time that once you decide and once you go to borrow and once it becomes a cost to the towns, what are we looking at, 2-3 years before that happens?
We're looking to go out for the vote in the fall of 2026. And then I don't think they finish the building. They'll probably finish, it'll take you about 3 years from that date on. So we're still, 4 or 5 years out anyway. So we got a little bit of time before we go.
Excuse me, just
Yep.
sorry to interrupt. I apologize. In your fiscal year 26 budget, how much money are you looking out of your tech school budget to expend on this project?
The feasibility study was totally paid for within our operating budget rather than go out to our 19-member towns because we planned on it over the last decade. So we knew that we had an older HVAC rooftop unit project. We had 13 new HVAC units. The whole build, the $5 million project that was coming to a close. That cost us about $500,000 a year. So when that concluded, we transferred that money to capital stabilization, which paid for the almost $1.6 million feasibility study. Because the thing that we didn't want to do is go out to the towns twice. Once for the feasibility study, put the town at a bond, And then come a couple of years down the road, now we're coming back to you for a much larger bond. So we said, well, no, let's just try to be smart about this. So I think we expressed that here last year as well.
So, once it goes out, I wouldn't say it goes out to bid, but once we start paying for the facility, whichever
Yep.
way you decide, is that a separate capital, cost, or is that included into your budget?
No, that will be an annual cost, very similar to, if I can get right to the capital, and I'll just show you where you are with this year's
Sure.
capital. So if I scroll to the budget book, it does have a, it does have a clickable link here. So if I go to capital stabilization, I believe it's right down in here. We'll get to it in a minute. There we go. And right down in here, capital assessment to town. So this is from that 9 years ago with the MSBA project, and I go over here from Northfield, we see it right down in here. I'll highlight it a little bit if I can. And it will show that that's about $11,466 that's being paid per year. And that bond will look very similar. So we'll have a spreadsheet like this, except it will show whatever the cost of the building is going to be, and we'll do that each year we come to the town. So it will be separate than your actual assessment.
Okay.
What are you looking for a bond
No, it says
period of
that
time,
doesn't
20 or
work.
30 years for the school?
We're not in control of that, so
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
You know, that's going to be determined as we move through the process. So I guess the Massachusetts School Building Authority is pretty concrete in what they do for each of the towns on the bonding, and I don't know what flexibility we have, if any, to adjust that.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to get back to the sources of funding, which is a primary part of the budget. That's called your face sheet. It's, you know, when you're going to be able to click around, it's on page 12. This is how we receive our money. And so it would be on your book around page 12. I'm not sure how that printed out for you. But the assessment to the towns. And when we look at that, the previous 10 years we averaged about 2.7%. But we've had an issue pop up as over the last, say, 6, 8 years, we're going 3%. But our net school spending continues to go down, 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 and down. At some point, if it reaches below zero, the towns will be required by law to pay. And we're at that point. So we've been very conservative with the 3% increase, and we're hoping that they were going to change some of the formulas, just like they did in the days of the Student Opportunity Act and the ESSER grant, and so we didn't have to go down that road. So we're looking for a total of a 5.5% increase to the towns. When I go through the net school spending chart, if you click, each paragraph's going to explain each of the subsections. So when you click on net school spending chart, it will bring you to that chart. As you can see, from 2016, the green line is the above net school spending, and the orange line is the minimum contribution, and the blue line is the state aid for the education. Well, the minimum contribution is going up, up, and up, and that's a burden to our towns. As you notice, the green line, which is our annual 3% increase, is going down, down, down. Once it crosses that red line there, and I'm going to get highlighted here, once it crosses that red line, the towns are required to pay no matter what. There's nothing we can do about it. That would be a loss. So we're trying to buffer that a little bit, because right now, if we kept the 3% increase to the towns, we would be at $5,082 above net school spending, which is ridiculously low as relative to the millions of dollars that some towns are in. Then if we will go to a 5.5%, that gives us about a net gain of $179,000 above net school spending. If that continued, now if the first situation of $5,000 continued for the next several years, we'd be looking at in 2 years from now $800,000 that the towns would have to pay no matter what, right? So so we're trying to avoid that.
And that's what, based
regulation.
on population?
That's based on that's actually based on what the minimum contribution is based on a couple of things. One is your relative wealth. 2 is your property taxes. 3 is your relative, what they compare as your income value. And then they mix that into a formula, and then, you know, chapter 70 says we can pay this much or not that much. And so, if chapter 70 is healthy and they're paying for the state, then we're not gonna get hit as bad with the net school spending. But now we're looking at it at 179,000 above net school spending. If we maintain a 3% increase from that point on, we'll be $200,000 below the red line next year, and the following year 400. So better than the 400 and the 800 that you see there. But if we maintain like a 5.5 to 6.5 rate for next year as well, we'll stay above that red line, and we won't have that automatic requirement to the towns kick in. That's something where, since we're out of hold harmless, we're getting kind of dinged on the other side. As you look at this mouth opening up, as you can see, here's minimum contributions in orange. Here's above net school spending. That mouth is getting wider and wider. That has to come a little bit closer together to have some good balance within a budget. So that's just an example of a visual. I know I explained that real quick, but you know, if we go back and we read that paragraph, it will give us a little bit better idea. So here's been our trend since FY22. We had the 6 million, 5 to 6.7, then a little bit higher than that, then to 6.9, and now we're at 7.3 for our total town. How does it break down for Northfield, which is important here? If you click on the next line, it's your per pupil expenditure chart. It will take you to Northfield. And if I look at Northfield, here's how you're trending from a student population standpoint. So 28, 40, 40, 50. So I think it's based on the number of graduates. So we have approximately 7 graduates in our senior class. We have 15 or 16 current applications. So we can predict that the Northfield enrollment will go up about 9 students next year. And the following year, when we have 17 in the junior class, if we get 10 applicants, it goes back down 7. So it's gonna fluctuate, it's gonna do that little hill or valley. So that's what we would expect moving forward. You can see on the far right-hand column, I'll highlight it for you, $18,023, which is the per pupil cost that is provided to us by the state, right? Where we have our overall average per pupil down at the bottom at $12,489. You can see Northfield in the company with quite a few towns like Whately and Warwick and Sunderland and Shelburne. Those towns, and not to mention these top half of these towns here, which these 3 in a row, Conway, Deerfield, and Irving are all a little bit higher than you per pupil. But that is based on, you know, what the state will provide us with. So there's your assessment, and what we basically do is you take that total number here. I'm gonna shrink the screen so it can fit into one.
Times 50.
All right, so minimum contributions that we were just talking about was here in this line at 7.2 million. When we add the transportation cost, right down in here, that's 396,000. Then we add the net school spending total, that's 441. Subtract it by our excess and deficiency, which is this column right here. And that's a difference of that $179,000 that I showed you previously. And so that will get us to this number that is over here, the 7.3. And you can see the trend for the last 2 years of what you paid out last year versus what you paid out this year. And that's all driven by the number of students in the building. That's just basic student enrollment at that $18,000 per student. You know, you go ahead and add 5 students, you're at 100,000, or pretty close to it. And so that gives you the assessments as far as Northfield's concerned. If I go back to the sources of funding, I can go to the debt service we just reviewed. That was that chart that I showed you earlier. Chapter 78, I click on this. Most important part of this is there's always an explanation. So you'll see the explanation right here in the budget. But aside from reading through the whole budget, which we're not gonna do tonight, I'm just gonna skip over to the sources of funding on the cherry sheet. For those that are not familiar, the cherry sheet is dictated by the Department of Revenue. And the Department of Revenue puts out what they're going to pay us as a, from Chapter 70 in our regional transportation, our regional transportation. So right now you see it at 6198918 as Chapter 70, and our regional transportation number right here, 882908. Where do those numbers come from? I think it's important that no matter what school district you have, you can look up your own town and your own school district and find out exactly. I click here, it goes to the Department of Revenue, what they call cherry sheet. And then it's very easy to do. All regional schools, I go down to Franklin County Tech, I click on Franklin County Tech, I click submit, or I can click on Pioneer or whatever. And there's those numbers we just got through talking about, the 6198, and there's the regional transportation number right there. So the numbers need to be transparent when you're doing a budget, and I want to make sure that when you go back to the sources of funding, this is what's in our budget book, that same number, that 6198. And the regional transportation number is right here. Now that's 882,000. You saw in the assessment that it was 696,000 total for all the towns. So how do I get that number? Well, our regional transportation, how we spend our money, is down in the second half of the sheet right here, where I look at the 1,279,000. Well, they didn't promise to pay their 100% that they promised us way back when they said they would do it. According to appropriation, but that according to the appropriation was in size 2 font, and no one really saw it. And they don't ever fund it at 100%. So we have to pay our member towns, even though we have the largest geographical regional school district by territory in the state at 561 square miles of territory, more than twice as much as the number 2 one. They're not paying us the full amount, so that comes back onto the towns, and that towns have to pay the difference. So we get reimbursed out of the 1.2 million. Here's how it works. That reimbursement rate up here that you saw on the cherry sheet of 882,000, subtract that from 882, you're around 350,000 and change. So that's what we have to pay out of our operating budget. And that's explained in those little paragraphs that you get. If you can't sleep at night, it's great reading. It'll put you right out, trust me. So the DOR cherry sheet would be next. We kind of already reviewed that. Non-member towns pay a much higher rate in their tuition. When you include everything, including special ed, some are $26,000, $27,000 per pupil on average. Some higher, some lower. And when we look at that 35 students, that's helping to offset those assessments to go even higher. As you're well familiar with, some school districts have those assessments at 8, 9, 11, 12%. This keeps us within striking distance by utilizing those non-member town dollars. Tuition from PEP, that's our self-contained private program. We are utilizing about $50,000 towards the budget. The revenues surplus equipment and Medicaid reimbursement, so those are small amounts, around 25 grand. And our excess and deficiencies is 657,000. That's very similar to a town's free cash. That's that unspent money from the year before. If I click on the excess and deficiencies, it kind of explains what it is. The important part of this, if you go down the bottom and you click on Franklin County Tech E&D certification, you kind of want to know what we're doing and if we're doing it correctly. So I go to 25, I click on Franklin County Tech, and I click preview, and that 657,000 number is right down in here. I can point to it right in here. So that's where we get that number from. We get it straight from the department. And I show you those things so it helps a lot of people navigate their own town's budget. They can take a look at this budget and plug in their towns and figure out, where things are going as well. Then I get back to how we spend the money. Slight increase here with the district admin. Instructional services, where our enrollment's gone up, so our number of teachers have gone up. We had to add a third electrical instructor, a third welding teacher, a fourth carpentry instructor. So those add up pretty quickly when it comes to that. And then student services, relatively the same. The next line after that is that transportation. That appeared to drop. That could go up, but the previous year we didn't use one extra bus. So that money rolled over to E&D, which contributed to that. So we're trying to say that's about an accurate rate. Instead of the 14 buses, we're back to about 13. Plant operation and maintenance, we have 2 new facilities. One is a veterinary science, animal science building, which I know some of the towns really like because it prevents a $50,000 to $60,000 tuition bill to Smith Voc for those students who are interested in the animal science or veterinary science type of programs. And it's a 4,800 square foot building that came online for this year. We also have finished the exterior of a 12,000 square foot aviation hangar for the aviation maintenance program. And that was 100% funded through competitive grants. So it didn't come with any cost to our towns. It was around $4.2 million. We have 8 aircraft, we have state-of-the-art equipment, and this is the first year of the program. So we're real excited about the availability for the students to be able to land jobs at a very good pay rate. And we're excited about that. And so that's where some of that other money has gone. Retirement contributions have gone up. I believe that number is actually even higher than that. We just got back from the insurance companies an 18 to 20% increase is what they did for the Hampshire group. For those that are part of that group, it is a substantial increase when we're used to 2%, 3%, now 18 to 20%, and you'll see that be reflected right here. When you look at insurance active employees, it jumped up, 200,000. So there's another hit to the budget right there, and that's going to happen in all towns. Insurance retirees jumped up to 632, and then non-employees. So the insurances are right down the line. Our capital stabilization has dropped because we're at the tail end of paying for our feasibility study. So we dropped that down to 238, and we do need money in there. We almost had to shut down a couple of different times when our main switchgear went. When the main switchgear goes, we're down 2 months. So what we had to do is we had to refurbish an old Federal Pacific switchgear, have it on standby in case one went. 2 weeks later, after we purchased it, it went. And we were able to replace it in 24 hours as opposed to waiting 2 months for someone to build one. Those, we've got, that's like 100,000 here, 100,000 there, there's 11 of those, right? So exterior of the building looks great, but it is 50 years old, and we're putting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars into it every year. So at some point, the dam's gonna break. And we're already experiencing it. We were told that like 6 years ago, and going, yeah, whatever, it's beginning to break. So there's on that end, and a debt service we went over. So basically, there's our budget, our first reading of the budget. The last thing I'm going to show you right now is, you can't read this fast, right, I think it's also what you'll see in the budget is where we have all our grants, right? So we have, just like every school, we get Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV grants, we get ESSA funds. What do we do with all our ESSA money? What do we do? Everything should be in here. You should be able to look and see exactly what we spent on ESSA 1, ESSA 2, ESSA 3, where it went, how much it was, and here it is on the screen. You'll see where we spent our money. You'll see why we spent our money. And I think this needs to be in the budget book for a few years as towns grapple with the extinction of their ESSA money and what did they do. I think if you're planning ahead, they told us it was going away. I believe them. So I didn't budget it entirely on salaries that we couldn't get back. So we were able to recoup. So here's all our entitlement grants that basically everybody gets and what those numbers are. Our competitive grants that I talked to earlier since 2014. Competitive grants, these ones that not everyone gets. You gotta apply for them and be competitive. we have got $9,072,000 since 2014, which helps keeps us afloat. That doesn't come from the taxpayers, and it really helps our budget out a lot. And then we look at our enrollment figures here. I got all the enrollment charts that you can look at. Again, if you can't sleep, it's right there. This tells you all the different school districts here at the bottom, where their enrollment has been. And then it will tell you where they are, so we can predict what next year is going to look like from a budgetary standpoint. Because we got grade 6, we got grade 7. Actually, if you want to know where these came from, you can look them up yourself for your own towns. You go to DESC state reports of enrollment, and it will tell you every single town. Here it is, exactly who's in pre-K, kindergarten, first, and you add those up, and you can predict where they're, pretty close to where you might be. So this gives you an idea of the enrollment. Here's our enrollment trends going up to 2034 and what we expect. As you can see, there's a decline in total enrollment of available 8th graders. And then we have total enrollment of member districts. As you can see, we're kind of tilting up right now here to 603 currently for next year. We're 591 now. So that's what we would predict. And I have a lot of other information in the budget, but I figured that's enough. That was a mouthful. And I'll just keep it here on the sources of funding if anyone has any questions.
What I'm gonna do tomorrow is I'm gonna put this on our website so that anybody that wants to look at it will be able to.
Yeah. And as you'll see when you do put it on the website, I'll remove the draft as soon as our school committee votes on it. You can see in these sheets in the background, there's a
Yeah.
watermark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just so that people know that
That it's a
these
draft.
numbers are still subject to change a little bit here or there.
I have a question here. Obviously, looking at the increase in assessments is obviously due to the increase in enrollment. I've noticed since, obviously, your figures here since October of 21 till this October of 24, we went up from 28 students attending the tech school to 50. That's a pretty significant increase in students, and Leiden has seen also an increase in students, where Bernardston's been pretty flat in the ballpark of what their average is. Can I ask you, when you speak to or look at these students, or and,
Well, what page do you want, just so I'm on the same page?
I'm looking here at this one here, the assessment.
Gotcha.
50.
The assessments to the
51,
town.
like.
Gotcha.
What are you hearing from the students? Why they're leaving Northfield? Obviously, they're leaving the Pioneer Valley Regional School District to go to your school, and to have 50 students in October 24. That's pretty significant when we've seen the overall enrollment decline in Northfield in the district itself. And are students finding that you provide services and an educational value, something that they're looking for, or is it they're just not satisfied with what they're seeing here in our own district? There are other programs that they don't offer, so that's why you're starting to see, just like I said, a continuous increase of going to tech.
Right. So I see it in a way that, first and foremost, the Pioneer Valley school system at the high school level offers a tremendous track for college. That's not who we are. We don't offer that track. Do kids go to college out of Franklin County Tech? Absolutely. But, it's in a field in which may require advanced precision machining, that they may go right into the world of work, or they may go into programming and need to go to college as a result of that, right? Mm-hmm. So each pathway has its own, but that's, our stated purpose is to get these kids into the world of work. And Pioneer does offer a really good 4-year education beyond high school and preps those kids really well for that. And that should be commended. And those students, as we go, if that is their pathway and that's their parents' pathway, they should stay at Pioneer Valley, right? So that's what we believe and have always stated. When you see different interests, it can draw from a couple of different areas. One is we added those 2 other shops, which draws some kids into interest, because our enrollment was getting bigger. We needed to add what the industries were telling us that was going to be viable and going to be a livable wage. And if I don't have a livable wage associated with that, I can't get any grant money. So it really has to be strategic in what we're really talking about. And I think that has contributed to it. And I also been around long enough to know that it ebbs and flows. You know, I had many years ago where the town of Heath was having a real tough time. They went from 2 students to 13 in 1 year. Now that may not sound like a lot, but when you get, you know, over 1,000% increase in your assessment in 1 year, that's significant. And then it fluctuated back, then all of a sudden those numbers went down. I think it ebbs and flows, but you know, but I think it's, you know, we're probably hitting a groove where, depending on how the economy is doing in the area and what parents are telling their kids, that, you know, you'd be better off, you know, doing this, that, or the other thing, or it's just generated by student interest. So the students and the parents will make those kind of decisions, and it does fluctuate. I'm not sure there's a trend of what a particular school district's not doing correct, but I think they do a lot of things right. You know, some would argue. I got to another town where they're saying, what is the tech school doing wrong? Because look at Montague, 93 to 73. So what are you doing wrong, tech school? Right? So I get the flip side of that at another meeting, right? But it's just going to continue to go in those hills and valleys.
Now, I know in years past, you've had looked at trends and you've looked at 5 years ahead of the schedule, and I'm sure you've done that.
I have it in the book.
Okay, so with that, what's in the book, and we'll put it out there, but what do you see happening? Do you see a bigger trend, more going towards tech schools, or do you see population increasing?
So the population's not going to increase, and I could probably pull up that chart right now. I think it would be very valuable. First chart I want to just show you real quick is where Franklin County Tech School, you'll see at the top, compared to all the tech schools in the entire state of Massachusetts. Are we fulfilling our mission? I'm a big believer in tech schools should be doing and preparing kids for the world of work and beyond. Not all tech schools have that philosophy. As you can see down the bottom here, you know, 10% of these kids from Minuteman are going into the workforce, the rest 90% are going to college. They have flipped their mission, and that's too bad for those surrounding towns, because the stated purpose, we have hands-on learners that aren't getting into these schools. When we look at Franklin County Tech at the top of the list, we continue to be #1 over that 3-year period as those students are going directly into the world of work. And that's, you know, that maintains to be our major mission. So if we're getting increased enrollment from Northfield or wherever, these are kids who want to go in the workforce. So that's how we're getting them, you know, and that's been our
Are
stated
there
mission.
limitations as to how many students you can accept from different towns?
Yeah, we have a quota formula, and when that quota formula gets filled up in the regional agreement, not every town fills that up. And so then their available slots go to the available slots for those other kids. So
Is that based on population of the town, or school?
It is based on total school population, and it's based on this right here in this chart that I'm gonna show you. Let's see where I can get it up.
Just above there, right?
It's this one right here. Here we go. Let me shrink the screen a little bit. I'll try to explain this the best I can. Whoops. Just scroll past it again. Here we go. All right, so as you can see, we're in this year right here. Oh, it just shrunk it again. What is it?
Doesn't like it.
It doesn't like it for some reason. I won't shrink the screen, I promise, so I can stay on target here. All right, so we're in the year 24-25. This blue line represents the number of 8th graders in our 19 member towns that are available. The orange area, the orange line represents the number of freshmen enrolling, right? This line above it is the percentage of that catchment area compared to the number of available 8th graders that are available. So 617 8th graders are available. Franklin County Tech enrolled 180 at a 29.9% of the total catchment area for the available 8th graders. These numbers, you know where I got them from, because I showed you town by town and who's in kindergarten and kind of walked it through. this doesn't account for really everyone who may be homeschooled, and we tend to get a lot of those. This doesn't also account for the half a dozen non-member towns that come to us, right? So it's not exactly right, but it is right for our member towns. And as you can see, our total eighth grade population goes down by the year 2034 to 525. Projected in freshman enrollment would be 165 to accommodate, to keep that percentage the same, right? We're taking less kids now than we did back in 2015-16 when we only took 132. And you're saying, how's that possible? If we look at that total number, 662, we had 132 out of 150 applicants. This year, we took 180 out of 290 applicants. So we're taking less students, percentage-wise, than we ever did in our past, but yet the enrollment has gone up because we added those two other shop programs. So those additional shop programs weren't in place.
Do you have out-of-state tuition students that go to Tech?
Yeah.
And what is the
There's
tuition
just a
fee?
few from Halifax.
Is the tuition the same for,
No, they're higher.
so
Yeah.
what would that be? All right.
That varies. I think it's 22,000 in that ballpark.
Okay.
That's not counting special ed, and most of those kids are requiring the other 5,000. So you're closer to 27,000.
Mhm. And how, that's not reflected in your population here, is it?
Not in this chart,
No.
but it is on a non-district chart. I'll show you that chart. I should have everything here. Here we go. This is including total enrollment in district and out of district. So right now we're at 643, and that would be on your page 44. We're at 643. We're projected to be at 658 next year based on out of district and in district enrollment. And then I'm expecting, based on that chart that I showed you earlier, for us to go back down. We'll start to decline again. So it's kind of, we're at that ebb and flow. This is probably the peak. And then we start to steady off and come back down. And so that, I believe that's the way that would go. So this is kind of in district and out of district.
So getting back a little bit to the first part of your presentation here, are you building to accommodate a certain number of students in the future?
We're building to accommodate the students we currently have. In other words, it's gonna probably eventually could kick out our out of districts, right? Because we're really focused on our member towns.
Sure.
Right? So we aren't gonna do the mistake that I think has been done in the eastern part of the state, where they're building these vocational schools based on their waiting list or based on the number of interest. You can't do that because, first of all, it's way too expensive. You go up 100 students, you have probably gone up $50 to $100 million in the cost of a building. So you want to keep the building as reasonable as possible, considering who we are and what our stated purpose and stated outcome should be for our students. So with that said, we are proposing right now about a 600 to 625 person building,
Okay.
keeping it reasonable.
Any questions? Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think Rick does a great job. His book is very thorough and transparent for what we do at
Another
Tech.
question, do you go to all member towns? Or do you have-
No, because right now I'm supposed to be in Irving.
Well, we'll let you know.
That's right.
So I couldn't split myself in two, so my business manager, Russ Cobras, is in Irving right now.
So you do have someone going to all member towns,
Yes,
regardless? Yeah.
yes, we always have someone going to all member towns.
Okay.
It's
And we
just,
appreciate that.
Yes, yeah, I think
yeah.
it is a sign that you respect the towns that are contributing to the school. So I do appreciate that, and we here do appreciate. We don't always get that from other school districts.
yeah.
And then
Well,
town meeting will,
yeah,
follow
town
up
meeting
with
will
us
do what
well.
you can. And so, but I've been fortunate to draw the stick here to come to Northfield. I think I'm on like my 7th to 8th year in a row. I think before that, my business manager got me. And so we kind of, it depends on what night. And then the other conflict we have is when all 19 member towns schedule their town meetings and there's 3 on the same day.
How many are on the same day? Do you know?
Huh?
How many are on the first Monday in May?
Oh geez, I'm not sure, but there's usually a few.
No.
Yeah, there's,
Well, we appreciate you being there and here,
Yeah.
because,
Thank
you know,
you.
not in presence or having somebody come to us. We appreciate that.
and I'm always a phone call away. If you guys think of any questions as you're reading through the book, give me a call and I will try to answer it the best I can. If you want to dive real deep, just set up an appointment and come to the school and I will dive in deep with you to the budget. And some people have taken me up on that offer.
If we do, we will.
Okay,
I thank you very much for.
Thanks for
coming.
having us.
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize a little bit. I should have had to do this.
Quite all right. I mean, we'll go through
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
This was nice.
Moving on, I had penciled in originally to have Pioneer Valley come in either tonight or next week, and they invited us to go there. I asked them again to come here, but they seem to have their meeting at their convenience as far as that, and so far they have declined to come to meet with us, so just wanted to bring that out. Moving on, Andrea.
I just have too many folks to move.
Dan, could I just say a quick thing about
Sure.
the issue of the, I was concerned, I received your, what you said, your email about the issue of them, wanting us to come to them for their meeting. As we are a financial oversight body for the town of Northfield, I felt that it's incumbent upon, the departments and these committees and various other representatives of these that have, that we oversee their budget, that they come before us, because that is our job, is oversight. It's not our job to go to somebody else, and that would be like, the House Appropriations going to the Defense Department, to see their budget. Our responsibility is for them to come here, present their budget to us, because that's our mission, oversight. And I think that if we ever did that we go there, it sets a bad precedent, because that means that they'll say, oh, you come to us. We could have other committees or groups or even department heads says, no, you want to, you come to me or to us. And to me, that then basically emasculates us. It makes us, we're not doing what we're supposed to do. And I think that I don't want to start that precedent of them saying, no, you come to us. Their responsibility is for them to come before us. And I think we wouldn't accomplish our mission if we did that and went to them, because I just think it would be a slippery slope of then we'll say, say the health board says, oh no, you come to our meeting. We're not coming to you.
Yeah.
Or the library trustees. And I'm not saying they would ever do that, but it would open the door to that. And then with that, we lose any authority as a fiscal oversight.
When was the last time they came to us?
Last year they.
Last
Oh,
year.
they did come.
They
last
did
year.
come
At the
last,
very end of the
Yeah.
discussion. when it was-
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first year that they have said, we're not going to the town, you can come to our meetings. I mean, their meetings were always there, anybody could go anytime. But there's,
To me, it
I don't know.
basically is a lack of respect for the people who are making recommendations to the taxpayers of the town, not to have all departments and all budgets come before us so that we can comfortably support. It's difficult to support, even though we've gone to many of these meetings and tried to express our concerns. But to me, it just shows a lack of respect for where the dollars are coming from. And the dollars are coming from taxpayers of the town. And the largest payout for the town is the educational process. I am all for education. It's pretty much our only industry that we can get something out of. Our kids' education is the main focus that we have, and it's more than 50% of our budget. And I just would like to have a little bit more back and forth discussions so that we're all on the same page. That may come, I'm not sure when.
And then the tech school, take a look, they go to how many communities?
Went to
Like
19.
20 some odd, 19?
19.
Yeah.
They make the effort
Yeah.
to be transparent. They make the effort to go and respect the communities in which they are members of the tech school, who send students there. And I don't think it's asking much for them to come and
They
present
they
their
go to
budget.
towns where they only have 5 or 8 students
Yeah.
going to the thing.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you how they respect the towns
Yeah.
that they
They
are
respect the
working
process,
with.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
And with that said, we're gonna move on a little bit. We're gonna move on to the general budget and capital articles. We kind of have gone over some of them. This sheet right here, I think you want to discuss this sheet first? or-
Sure, and we did have CPC articles on there, but we haven't gotten them yet, so that will come back, just so you know. I'm expecting them to come any day, because I saw an email go by that they were going to be forwarded to us, so I think we'll see the CPC articles come in very soon. So, yeah, that you do have a very recent draft, because I got, at about 5:01, I got this presentation that they sent, and it had a different budget number for the tech school than I did, so I quickly ran and put it in. So that's why you have a hard copy, but the electronic copy you get has already technically been updated, you just haven't gotten the new one yet. So there's 2 different pages here that are probably going to become more and more key. I mean, obviously you have that full budget tabbed spreadsheet, and you can break it down, you can look at all the budgets, I put all of that in, but these start to become the crystal clarifiers as you get closer and closer to town meeting. And there's the town meeting page, which shows all the different requests.
This is the one you gave to me, right?
I just left a new one on your desk. You have the
Okay,
new
so
one?
I hopefully I didn't commingle. I think you guys have the same one.
No, we put new ones on everybody's
Yeah,
desk.
yeah.
Because we have new tech school number. So
Oh.
these numbers, these annual town meeting, and actually there's a page tied to this that says funding sources. If you're in the thing, you can toggle, but they're essentially similar. Just one of them gets turned into the handout. These are all the articles. They are literally the articles. So number 1 will be waive the reading of the warrant. Number 2 will be accept the report. So these ultimately become your articles. And the request then becomes generally the requested amount from the article. That doesn't mean you're going to fund it, doesn't mean you're going to accept it, but generally speaking, then when you guys make decisions, we put in whether or not the finance committee is going to recommend it, and then the amount you're going to recommend. So those 2 columns are still blank. So my spreadsheet's working off of other columns at the moment because obviously you guys haven't made your decisions. Then you have to make your decisions on how to fund these. Some of them are easy because enterprise sewer, enterprise EMS. You don't even see it now, but this goes off. It does have CPC. I didn't bother to print that because we don't have any of that data in there. So I left it big enough to read. And we aren't proposing anything from stabilization. But you will see that this is the column where you have to decide raised by taxation and free cash. Oh, it didn't print the bottom, huh, to show me? That
Which
must
one?
be the,
Which part?
well, usually it shows the number actually in the free cash account, so you can see how close you are to the, but it does tell you on the first page
I
that
think
this,
it does.
the certified amount is 1,057,000 and you're looking at 1,054,000,
Yeah.
so you can do the math. I don't know, the one I printed out for some reason doesn't show it at the bottom. It's on your spreadsheet, the one you have electronically. So then you guys have to make some decisions on what are
see
you
it
going to
now.
raise by taxation? What do you want to do with free cash as another funding source? And that's a balancing act that you guys generally start to play with. Often you have enough in free cash to handle most of the non-operating requests. Doesn't mean you always fund them, but this year you don't. So you're gonna have to actually make some decisions or become very creative. On your funding tab, I actually put in a column that just kind of had my recommendations, and these are only mine. You guys get to make the say. My recommendations, and you do see it on here, like for example, the town hall bathrooms, to get under the free cash amount, I removed $2,000. So from 230 to 228, I didn't think that would kill the project. So that was just a small change. I originally suggested removing the rec department storage shed. Again, this might be a project somebody wants. It's, to me, in a time of making decisions weighted on the others, not the first thing I would fund. Having said that, you might have a different priority. This is just my opinion. The grader, based on what he was saying and the position he wants, although you could get creative if you were concerned about the position of the grader, you could partially fund this article in case he does have an engine or expensive part failure. You could do that. I reduced the emergency services facility. You'll see it's at 300. It was originally usually put in at 5. So that's another recommendation area where you can pull a couple $100,000 out, because that's an account you're saving for a future thing.
Right.
I would hate to see you drop it to 0 or drop it off, because they may move forward and they may need to hire professional help. But that is an area you could get some savings. I also looked at the town clerk, town treasurer stipends. If you wanted to consider them, I thought, well, maybe you reduce them to 500 apiece, if you want to fund them at all, as opposed to 1,000 apiece. So I took that down from 2,000 to 1,000. So that's.
Speaking of that,
yeah,
who's looking for a stipend or to increase?
The Board of Health?
Yeah.
I've got that answer.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a minute.
All right,
So
we'll go.
those are my suggestions, but you could get creative. Like, for example, you could say we want to put $50,000 in the grader account and we want to reduce the request to the sewer from 150 to 100. Like, you can move this around any way you
Yeah.
want. You just can't exceed the amount of free cash you have. And everything you put in taxation obviously goes on the tax rate. So that's the balancing act that you guys have to discuss, what you support, what you don't support, what you want to fund, and how you want to fund it.
I just had a
Yeah.
comment. In the past, hasn't the emergency services facility been raised and appropriate, or did it always come from free cash?
It has in the past been raise and appropriate. You have put it on the tax rate. I think you have some unique challenges with the tax rate this year that
Okay.
maybe you don't want to do that.
Okay.
Because of some of the other requests. Now, the other thing is you could drop some of the other requests and raise and appropriate
Yeah.
and shift that over.
Okay.
Again, that's really on you guys to kind
Okay.
of balance that. I stuck it there, but you're right. You could say, we're not gonna do the maintenance worker, we're not gonna do the new highway worker, and we'll shift 1,000, 100,000 or 200,000 back onto the tax rate.
Okay.
And take those two out of the budget altogether. That's really your game to
Okay,
call.
yeah, because I was just making a comment because I know
Yes.
I've seen it as raised and appropriate.
It has
in the
been
past, yeah.
traditionally. It has traditionally been, but you have some big school change. You know, this one's a big school change. Obviously, a huge
Oh, yeah.
chunk of students moved. When I started, there were about 24 kids at Tech. There's now 50. And yet, it doesn't proportionally get reduced. I mean, you don't have a huge assessment to Pioneer, but it's not like it went down because this one went up. So, you know, if Tech's going up because students are going there, it's not like you're getting a proportional
Well, you kind
reduction.
of missed the first part when he was
Yeah.
discussing the new building or whatever.
Right.
It's
Right.
gonna come within the next 4 to 5 years that
Right.
we'll be paying for something like that. So
So,
we've
so
got to
there's a-
keep that in consideration too.
right, so you've got a lot of capital things to think about there. And then you also had this year the request for 150 from sewer. So, I mean, some different things this year that you wouldn't necessarily normally have seen. So I did want to say, I did send out a request to Unibank, our financial advisor, for a 5-year, if they borrow 150, if they borrow 200, if they borrow the full 300. So when I get those figures, I'll send it back to you, and then you'll see what the cost would be, knowing that if they put that completely on the enterprise fund, what that might do to the rate. But we did look at the, I will have those for you to kind of think about in terms of what supporting or not supporting that article would do if they went ahead and did it on the user fees. So as soon as that comes, I will forward that to you. And then, as you mentioned, we did get a response from, and I think I sent it to you today, because I got it Friday and I didn't see it. But basically, the stipend increase was proposed to more align with the planning board, which is closest, they feel, to their board in similarity. They believe they meet more times, more hours, I'm not so sure about this year, and require special certifications and trainings than that of the planning board. So they feel more specialized people are needed to be on the board. This is from the chair. The Board of Health is now required to complete additional trainings to allow for grant money to be received from the Department of Public Health. This new requirement will require a considerable amount of time for the chair and other members to complete, to be in a position to be awarded the grants. I think that's the SAFE grants. They have to do some trainings.
That's fire safe grant.
What?
Safe grants usually fire.
You know, the board, the health ones.
Oh, okay, yeah. I
They're
don't-
called, they may be spelled SAPH,
Oh,
the
okay,
public health
yeah.
grants. Having served, he's served on the Board of Health for 32 years. There've been no stipends, little stipends, having stipends. It's all over the place. He's saying, obviously, money's never been the driving force for serving the town, but with the additional workload, they're thinking that it makes sense for them to
So this is
request it
for
at this
which,
time.
this is for who? The planning board?
This is this Board of Health.
Board of
Board of
Health.
Health.
Because they
Yeah.
weren't able to
Okay.
attend and they
So
asked.
elected positions we're looking at, not appointed
Right.
then.
Right now, the breakdown is about $600 per member. And the proposed breakdown they're looking at is $2,000 for the chair and $1,000 for each member for a total of $6,000.
When is that paid, like annually or biannually or how?
I don't know when they file for theirs. Most of them are biannual. I think they do twice a year, like December and June. But usually we leave it to each board to put in the paperwork for their stipend.
So that's not in the budget at all, anyway?
Yeah, no, it's in.
It
Their
is in?
request of $6,000 is in your
It's in
budget
the budget that
already.
you gave it? Okay.
Yeah, and that's when you spotted it and said, can we just know why? And so, but you have this in your, you should have gotten it by email. You may not have seen it yet today, because I sent it to you today, but you can read his full
How much do
explanation.
select board members get paid?
I'll tell you, because I have the budget
You
spreadsheet.
had that.
Oh, I'm kind of
Oh, I
curious.
have the big spreadsheet here. I even know I printed out. They get, I have all the stipends.
Things aren't
That's
too big.
25. Let's go to 26.
With the 2 grand too?
Yeah, they get,
I think the chair gets a little bit more.
More, yeah.
select board stipend. So this year, the chair will get 27, 29, 43, because I get COLA, so it's a weird number. And the individual members, or sorry, this year he'll actually get 2811 with the new one. And the members will each get 2568. So just over, chair almost, just
Yeah.
under 3, and the others just around 25.
Well, I know they've asked for raises.
They did a few years back.
Yeah,
They
about
asked for
2
a
years
stipend
ago,
change,
they
Yeah.
but
did, yeah.
They have not
Yeah.
asked for
And
that.
that brought
since.
that forward again, yeah.
No, they have not. They can discuss bringing it forward. So anyway, so there's, but obviously those are my recommendations, but you guys need to really sit and discuss what you want. The spreadsheet you have is tied to these two forms, which quickly sort of become your,
Bible.
so if you play with the spreadsheets, you will affect this front page. So, when you start to change these numbers, it will affect, so if you go into, the line item budget, for example, and say, I want to take those stipends out, and you change it under the Board of Health in the line item, that will then affect this line, it's already linked, which will then affect this line, because it's already linked. And
Yep.
then you'll start to see the effect on the tax rate for everything you cut, or everything you move to a different funding source. So there are formulas in there, and I would just say, I try to link them as much as possible, so that if you were to go in and make a change,
Yeah.
it affects. And this is the page that you start to look at. This is the one we do hand out at town meeting. It goes in the book. And it starts to talk about, here's all our expenditures, and you can see our expenditures. The difference this year, right now, just straight off the bat from requests, is $988,000 in requests. Now, having said that, if you look at the revenue, there's also a corresponding, I didn't do that one, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 600 and something revenue increase. So it's not, you're not seeing a full $988,000 increase in the budget, because it's offset by additional money in free cash, additional enterprise funds, because the EMS went up, but some it's additional indirect costs from the sewer department. So, you do have corresponding increases in revenue to go against some of those. So
So if I'm looking at this, is the estimated tax rate is what we're looking at, right? If we go,
Right.
right, it's based on what we've done
Right,
so
and,
far.
and you have to be very careful with that number, only because the revenues are estimated. So, actually,
Yeah.
the actual receipts for fiscal '25 haven't been entered, I'll get that
Mhm.
number. It's over 600,000. And they generally are over 600,000, but I'm always gonna be conservative about the number. So that means when the real number comes in, that tax rate is actually gonna fall, because the real number is what gets computed when you do the tax rate. So this is, when I try to put it in, it's all the expenditures and the lowest revenue that we can expect. So it's gonna give you the most dramatic tax rate unless something strange really happens.
Page 3 of the
Yeah.
recap.
And, right. And do remember that I did put on this sheet, which doesn't show as an article, there's the 89,000 raised by taxation for the ATB, and that's part of the reason why I swapped the emergency services building,
Okay.
because you're putting the ATB stuff on the tax rate. And I think that's a reasonable thing to explain too.
Yeah.
Is that $89,000 is a settlement amount for interest on it, and appellate
So-
tax court settlement.
Someone will explain that, town meeting, right? What the settlement is all about. That's public record?
Certain parts of it are,
Okay,
certain parts of it are.
okay.
There are parts of the record that are not yet public, but I'm sure that if somebody asked, the assessor, could certainly stand up and say, we had an appellate tax court case. We felt one number, they felt another number. The court kind of came down and split it. So they had to pay it up front, so we gave it back, because that's their money. We had to take that out of overlay. But we then have to pay the interest on that piece that we had to give back, that we had to give back. And it was a large amount of money. So therefore, the interest for a year, it takes a year to go through appellate tax court, or more, comes to, I think it's actually from the 2023
Does the
filing.
court dictate the interest?
It's a certain percentage,
Okay.
yeah. And so it's like 2 years' worth of interest, and you have to pay that back. You get to keep your portion of the decision, but that's already 2 years old. It's gone, it's already in your tax and expenditure. Now you have to give back their portion plus the interest.
Any questions?
So I also used the governor's numbers, so
For-
those might change later. So the governor's recommendation for receipts. Governor's budget is generally considered dead on arrival.
Yeah.
But
And then that goes to the Senate, and the
then the
Senate,
House.
the House and the Senate. and then they-
Generally, they're as generous when it comes to local receipts,
Yeah.
if not more. So using their numbers generally, see, I can't say that. And then the other stuff is like the cherry sheet offsets for the library and everything. Those they total up to 8 So if there's little changes in that by a few dollars here and there, that's not monstrously difficult. The big one is, is the cherry sheet receipt. This is our estimate from the governor right now, but that number is going to ultimately be what the House and Senate decides that number is going to be. But in order for us to figure a number to start with, we got to start somewhere. You'll see it's not dramatically different than last year anyway.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any questions on any of this? I know it's a lot, but hopefully you'll take some time with the spreadsheet and just, you get the first page, then you got the omnibus, you get the line item budget, which is all the sheets you got, and you get the omnibus, which that third page is the one that goes in the warrant. So it's totaling from your line item budget. It's taking departments and putting them together and creating the omnibus budget, and then you'll see the breakout for the school, for the sewer, for the EMS, those are all their own separate pages. Then there's, the warrant article page, and then there's the how to fund the warrant article page, which are very similar, but this one gets turned into the spreadsheet that goes in the handout, so it's a smaller version, and there's some of the lines get put together. And then there's some housekeeping in there, trying to figure out cherry sheet and those effects. So, and then there's the payroll sheet from Hal. Good luck with that. And then there's the payroll tables, the grade and step, those factor in. So all of this is theoretically in there, but now's the time that you're gonna have to kind of play with it and see. And if you have any questions on it at any time, please email me, and I'm
I
happy to
think
see.
it,
And if you catch something, please don't deny that you might have, because with all those spreadsheets, it's very possible that a formula gets messed up and I don't catch it.
Oh, yeah.
I go over this and over this and over this, but
Oh, yeah.
it's
Sometimes
there's
you need a fresh pair
inevitably
of eyes,
some little
yeah.
thing got backspaced over and all of a sudden it's not adding up correctly because a lot of these sheets are linked. And it's very possible if you think something doesn't
Oh,
work,
yeah.
that it just might not work. So don't hesitate to say, I don't think this is working, and then let me tear my hair out. So save your hair.
Homework will be to look over what we have, the latest and greatest, as far as, if we see any
Okay.
discrepancies. And we'll come back and start discussing, it looks like we're gonna start discussing and reviewing the budget, the early part of March. I'll get there when we get to that, our next meeting too. Approval of minutes. We're still looking at AI. I sent you over the one that we've been looking at. We're looking at several different ones. And you weren't here last week because I want to ask your opinion as to when you got the full AI, was it something that is usable?
I think so.
Okay.
It looked pretty on point.
Okay. A lot easier than doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at, not making it a chore to take the minutes and to be as accurate as possible so that when we vote the minutes that we feel comfortable that they reflect what went on in our meetings. So the fact that you've been doing the minutes a couple of times, quite a few times actually, I am appreciating your opinion. They're looking at other things. If and when we go to that route, what will happen is there will be it will be done, and then there will be someone that would look over and make sure that it was done correctly, and then put it in the sense, and we would then look at it and vote on it. So it's pretty much the same thing we do now. It's just trying to save time and effort.
Yep.
And if we can have that happen, it's
And we've
we're
also
having
been-
a hard time getting people to
Right.
to
Who want to take minutes. So
Yes.
we figured if we shift the position from a minute-taking position to more of an IT management position, so in other words, the minutes will be taken for you, and then you go in and you make sure voice one is this person, voice two, and then we
Yep.
shuffle it.
Like an
check-
editor.
Right, more like an editor, and run it through the IT and run it through the AI. That's our thought, and that might be more easy and attractable, especially for someone who's younger. Younger people, they don't do minutes. Like, it's kind of like a dying thing, except in government, where everybody has it, or now places are doing AI. But at my conference, I talked to more and more people, and they're doing AI to at least start the process, and then someone does the editing. We think we might have better luck hiring someone. So we will have to record these, how they get recorded, whether they're Zooms or iPads, or that piece will come as well. But that's a separate piece. I mean, obviously, if everyone's on their own Zoom, it's pretty easy for it to do it. But if you're in the same room, you have to go in and you have to match, I think, the first time the voice to the person. And then the AI will start to pick it up.
And I know because I will be discussing this with the town clerk, because if there's any equipment that needs to be purchased as far as doing it, because the town clerk is the records keeper, it would benefit to the records keeper to have an accurate minutes to be able to draw from when people are looking for those, because we're always having, the town clerk is always having people asking for different information. And if we can give it to them quickly and efficiently, then it saves time and effort for the town clerk. So I know that there's a discussion as to if iPads or some kind of a pad is needed to record the meeting, that we or she may be able to look at her budget and see if we can come up with something. I'm trying to separate.
Obviously, equipment purchase would include licensing fees or software or things like that.
It would
Also,
be an
maintenance
annual
fees.
appropriation to a company that's going to be the vendor of this.
Yeah.
But my thought is that if we have less hours for the board's clerk, we might be able to put it right in the select board line, that annual fee as part of an offset to that job.
Okay.
Because we've paid for many hours of someone sitting through the meeting and taking the minutes, and then going back, typing them up and editing them. Well, if they don't have to sit through the meeting and write everything down anymore, if they were taking a recording and editing, it's a much less time. So the thought is that we would have less hours there for that person. Although we do want a few hours in-house if they can come in and do some filing still in the filing room. But again, all of that is, I think, more attractive to people because they can do it at their own time. Our limitation is we need it back in a couple of weeks, but other than that, you can do it at home any time of the day or night. And that, I think, might be more attractive to someone as well for the job, rather than having to come to meetings.
So I do know that we have some outstanding minutes that I know you were working
Yep.
on some. So if we can get those in draft form, and if you want to use the AI and critique it and send it over, and we'll look at that.
Well, I don't know
Everybody,
She doesn't have the program now, you mean?
no, she doesn't have the program now, but
But she
we
has-
already have that one
Yes.
meeting that we did do.
Yeah,
So,
run
we-
through.
you know, we'll use that to
Yeah.
make it, your life easier. And then, as we go forward, there'll be less and less involvement, so we won't have to take notes. And, you know, I want you more participating, is what I'm actually trying to get at.
Well, no, and
So-
then hopefully if we get that and we hire someone, then
Yes.
you won't have to do it all. We'll just do whatever we need to
So
record the
we'll be-
meeting, and then that person will be
So
doing that.
when, and if you have the drafts ready, just send them, we'll send them out.
Okay.
We'll take care of that at our next meeting. Moving on to briefings and meetings attended by members. I don't think I haven't had any.
I haven't had any.
You have had.
Yeah, CPC voted on to fund 3 requests. One is the cemetery cleaning and refurbishing for $2,500. One is from the Historical Society for mini splits for the building. I think it's around $20K. And then outdoor rec, they're doing a survey for some land that was donated for near Hobo Falls. And I don't remember the amount of that one, but there was just those 3.
So do they have quotes on all of those 3?
Yep.
Have those been?
I think they're coming to me
article?
soon. I think she hasn't sent them yet, but I'll
Okay,
follow up.
because those are blank here, so I wanted to
Yeah, and they
make
don't
sure
affect your
those-
budget because that's
I
an
know,
in and
they
out,
don't.
but yeah, I'll get that filled in as soon as she gets them.
Okay. Anything else? Historic Society?
And
They canceled.
just before she says, and that she did say that they won't be doing the request for the cemetery, so I had
Yeah,
already
we went
zeroed
through
that,
our
because they're doing the
warrant.
CPC funding,
Okay.
Yeah, the warrant was just a backup, so we're taking that out.
so.
Okay. Any public comments? Moving on. Correspondence, other than what I've given you here, and again, I didn't get the booklet out, but the booklet, you have a copy of that, right? The draft form for the tech school?
I already emailed it, but I only got
You
it
got
at
it in the
5
email.
I
o'clock.
know you emailed it, but is that something that we want to put on the website?
It's still draft, I would wait till they give me their final one before I would
Okay.
put anything on, in case they
Okay.
change it, because then if they change it,
Alright.
someone goes, but I saw this number.
Yeah.
So as soon as they send a final one, we can certainly put it on the finance page and say, hey, here's the budget for tech.
And that, and then also when Pioneer, if they send us ours, I want that on our website too.
I do have at least one thing sent from them, their most recent proposed budget 2026 handout here, which I do have electronically, but haven't put it on yet because I don't know. I assume it's not a draft, but I can make a note that this one
I
and
thought
then
they
the tech
were,
one.
they still had decision, I think they were made.
They haven't voted they haven't done their final official vote.
Yeah, because they're
once they
waiting for
do
the
that.
24th or something, because that's
Yeah.
what they use for an excuse not to come.
Okay.
Anything else? Let's see, correspondence, done? Anything not anticipated? I can't think of anything, anybody? Our next meeting is the Monday the 24th. To be announced what we're going, we may start early deliberation on some of these things. We might want to think about hard some of the budgets that have come before us and some of the capital articles that we've been looking at, and if we need to bring somebody back in, we can do that. Right now, I could think of only one, maybe the highway to come back in and discuss his equipment, or how we might want to fund it. I know that he has said that he would give up one for another, but we'll see how that would help us in our quest to try to keep the tax rate down. So I know he's willing to work with us on that. So that might be something we might want to do.
And for your next meeting, I'm gonna go through the budget spreadsheet again, because I quickly threw in their numbers, but I wanna go through it one more time with their numbers in, make sure it filtered through the whole system, make sure everything's correct on this page. If I get anything, if I get the CPC this week, I'll put it all in. So again, Thursday or Friday, I'll send you the new and improved spreadsheet. I do change the date on it, so you should always be getting a newer date on the bottom of the spreadsheet, so you don't get confused, because I have too many versions. And then if I get the wastewater treatment borrowing spreadsheet from David Eisenthal, I will include that so you can get a chance to see what that.
Okay, so we're, what, 90%, 99% done?
Yeah, if you
With
guys get
our
close,
numbers?
I have to put this all into the annual budget report, that blue book, and it's due the end of this month, so right after, I'm hoping you're close and that you'll make your final decisions, because I have to flip that around in about 4 days.
Are you looking for us to have that decision by the 24th?
Well, I mean, more or less. I mean, I'm gonna assume that what you do at that point is you're playing within the budget, so the numbers won't change dramatically. And then, you know, I'm assuming that if you change any operating budget, we'll know by then, because those operating budgets go on the back end of people's submissions. If you haven't taken one of those annual report budget books home, I suggest you do, because that's what we're working on filling out. We like to get it done around March 1st so we can get it to the printer. So your budget is obviously a big portion of that. And so, I mean, even if you change a thing here or there, or something changes last minute because an article comes in, that's fine. But generally speaking, to kind of settle down to where you think the budget should fall, then I can do all the front budget report pages in
So
there.
I'm going to ask a member here. So one of the requests when we had a meeting last year, in that budget book, you thought it would be nice to have something else in that budget book.
Me?
Didn't you ask to have the salaries, not necessarily the person's name?
I did. Thank you, good memory.
Well, you beat me up on it. No.
She beat you up on it.
And I don't see
Blanked
that
it
being
out.
an issue if, you know, you put down, everybody knows what the town clerk, assistant town clerk makes as far as doing it.
Well, those are, some of that's already in the omnibus.
It is.
In the
Yeah.
omnibus, you will find many of the elected and appointed positions. Where you don't have them are the grouping ones like highway, police, I don't have it for fire because they're just wages. Wastewater the ones where I've sent you the payroll sheets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Highway, those, so there's really only like maybe 3 of them where it's like really broken out. Obviously I can include those by removing names.
Is that something that the finance committee would like to see? Or is that would be trying to be as transparent as you possibly can without, you know, describing who the person, money, again, of course, people know, but.
I mean, some of it's
We're
in.
trying to be,
They
trying to be
know
more
mine.
I know
transparent,
in-
seeing their dollars.
Why
again.
should anybody else get to hide theirs? Mine's
Some
out.
town,
Mine
yeah,
too, mine too.
some towns I've worked in, they put people's salaries and stuff in their town reports.
Well, I'm saying in that town
Well, it would
report,
be
we
in
put a
that-
budget sheet. I can always attach, like, there's the highway budget sheet. It's now at the end of his
Yeah.
thing. I can do the highway payroll sheet right behind
Yeah.
it. I would probably just remove the names.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Do
Just
it by
say-
position.
I mean, you're gonna know,
Yeah, you're gonna
highway
figure out who
super
they are
earns a little
anyways.
more than the other people.
Yeah.
So you're gonna figure out kind of who's who. The other ones are all
Yeah.
fairly close. There'll be highway worker who's a 7.4, someone's a 7.5, someone's a,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, a couple towns, town reports I've seen.
Yeah,
And they'll break it, like with police, they want to know what they were making overtime. So you had their regular and their OT.
yeah, and I don't have that, like,
Yeah.
each individual person. We do
Yeah.
have budget, and you'll see on that payroll
Yeah.
sheet where we have budgeted some for overtime, budgeted for part-time. If they want that level of detail, they're gonna have to go downstairs.
Okay.
Because I don't track that, but
Yeah.
we'd have to get a report like that for each individual person from the treasurer or the accountant.
Yeah.
Because I don't
And again, I don't
track
think
that.
we
I'm
have to
only
go
tracking the
that-
budget end. The
You know,
payroll
yeah.
end is
I
that.
don't think we have to go that deep as far as doing that,
But they can see.
The opinion of the rest of the board here. It was just brought a question to me, and I just wanted to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
it didn't get did not get talked about. So to me, it doesn't bother me because mine's out there.
Highway, sewer.
I've always had mine out there being
Yeah,
a single
so-
office.
I have no issue with that. Again,
Yeah.
we were public employees.
Yeah.
I've worked previous town that they posted the salaries of the individuals.
So
It's not-
what we would do then, just to make it fair, we would make a motion that would be put into the booklet. So if that's the case, I would ask for a motion.
I make a motion, Bernie Prada, make a motion that the employee salary items be placed in the town report. Is that what you're looking for?
Is that
For the
town
annual town report?
Yeah, the big blue
Yeah,
book, I
big
know.
blue book.
Yeah,
Do I have a second for
Without
that?
names, right?
Yeah, without names.
without names.
But
no, I
by
don't-
position.
By position.
By
By
position.
position.
Yes.
I think
Go
that,
ahead. Go ahead.
Lindsay McCarthy, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes or no. Dan Campbell says yes.
Gail Weiss, yes.
Bernie Prada, yes.
Robin.
Oh, go ahead, Bonnie.
Robin Vandermeer, yes.
And Lindsay McCarthy, yes.
Okay, so that settles that part of it. Is there anything else that you would like to see?
Quick question.
Yeah.
We all know, you and I both attended the preliminary, their secondary budget meeting at the schools. But I see an item here for a capital, which they never discussed, at Northfield Elementary. Do you know what their $50,000 is supposed to be used
Oh,
for?
no, you were sent those sheets. The capital for the.
I'm sorry, I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah,
I
maybe it's been
apologize.
before you came in.
Before you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we do the 10,000 for the flooring every year.
Yep,
Yeah,
Cameras of 3,000.
okay.
I think there's an awning for 37.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
And I made it, yeah, to be total of 50.
okay. I just want to know what they were, I know they do the floors every year.
Yep, yep.
I'm just looking.
The big thing is this
But that-
awning.
That's not going through the school, that's us, right? Because nobody else is paying for that. So that's
Yes.
different than what we were talking about, I guess, that we're going to bury in their budget. as far
Correct,
as
their
what-
overall
Yeah,
capital for
so
the whole
this is-
district.
This is
for-
NES.
This is just the
yeah,
elementary
The
school, which
elementary
we,
school, which we own, and what we are taking care of and what we were.
and the awning is though at the front portico, basically, that?
Yes, they've got quotes in here. They sent me the quotes. Yes, and then 3,000 for a camera system. They originally had $10,000 for interior gym doors, but they've dropped that.
Okay.
So even
So-
with the new agreement, this will still continue?
Well, I mean, right
Yeah,
now,
that's what
right
I'm
now, the
wondering,
new
yeah.
agreement isn't in place. No,
Yeah.
I think that was a question people had.
Yeah.
We assume they're gonna roll all that into the operating
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
But the question was, how are you gonna do that by town?
Yeah.
So if you give an operating assessment and then you break it down in the
It-
formula, how can you do, you're gonna have to lump then the
They did
individual
explain
elementary
that. That was
schools on
explained as
top.
far as doing it. If there was a capital project that was specifically for Pioneer, the assessment would be only for Pioneer. Or, I mean, not sorry, only for Northfield.
Right, the question became like, say the budget's $1 million, so we can do the math. And, Northfield pays 500 and Bernardston pays 400 and Lyden pays 100. But then they want to do something at Northfield Elementary School. They'd have to say, okay, Northfield, your assessment is 550,000. Because they're not going to put the 50,000 into the budget to go to Bernardston or
Right.
Lyden, because it goes to the Northfield Elementary School. So the assessments could be different after you add capital for the elementary schools. I'm not sure why, that's why it seemed easier to just leave the capital article separate.
Right, yeah.
Well, speaking of cameras though, one of the discussions what the PDRS was talking about is cameras. And I didn't know if it was just gonna be for the school, but this brings up a thing here. If they're gonna put them in all schools and we're paying for that twice, sounds like, because we're paying for it anyway. We're
So
gonna.
the PBRS assessment goes through, that goes through everybody.
Yes, so I didn't, yeah, I didn't know if they were talking about cameras for the elementary school or cameras just for the high school, so
Yeah.
they did mention something on that.
Yeah, they didn't get into real specifics on
But
that.
again, they're not under that new contract yet, or new agreement yet.
No.
So they're gonna have to split out their capital,
If there's-
They have to follow the current active agreement,
exactly.
Correct.
not that,
Exactly.
yeah. And I don't know if that'll be even before town meeting this year.
And you heard me kind of
I don't know.
quiz the tech school on that. It would be separate,
No.
so,
It is always separate.
so.
And I have to change that. I estimated 11,500 for the tech, and it's 11,466, so I have to.
Yeah, I
go
remember it was
back.
like 17, 18 for orange.
I have to go back
It
and
was
change
always-
that number
yeah,
for you.
Okay, so that's one thing.
So
Yeah,
little things like that have to get.
yeah.
Anything
close.
else?
Nope.
Seeing none? Bernie,
I, Bernie Parada, make a motion to adjourn.
do I have a second?
I Gail White, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes or no. Dan Campbell said yes.
Gail Weiss, yes.
Bernie Parada, yes.
Robin Vandermatt, yes.
Lindsay McCarthy, yes.
So adjourned, and at 7:26.